not sure how well you're going to come out in my
Try.
I
I think it went do not disturb.
I'd like to call to order the Town of McCandless Council's regular business meeting from July the 23rd, 2018. We have an invocation and pledge of allegiance from Councilman Kirk.
Almighty God, we thank you. We thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for loving us despite our many failings. Father God, we humbly ask that you watch over and protect our first responders and the women and men of our armed forces for their willingness to go in harm's way on behalf of others and against those who would harm us. Guide us tonight, assembled in this room to undertake the most difficult but gratifying task of self-governance. Guide and direct our meeting so it is full of wisdom, understanding, and respect for one another. It is in your most holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the council's business minutes?
So moved.
I second.
There is a motion to approve the minutes of council's regular business meeting of June 25th, 2018 and July the 2nd, 2018 of the reconvened regular business meeting as submitted to each member of council. Any comments or any changes that need to be made on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll vote to approve the minutes. All those in favor of approval accepting the minutes from the meeting indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I have no announcements at this time, just to encourage everyone to please sign up for Savvy Citizen or for McMail so you can stay on top of all the goings on in the town. Item number 5 will be a public hearing on the ordinance now tentatively identified as ordinance number 1480, an ordinance requested by Barrel Chevrolet Incorporated to amend the Town of McCandless zoning code to change the zoning district of certain properties on Little Meadow Road in the Town of McCandless from R2, 1 and 2 family residential districts to C3 highway commercial districts and amending the zoning map of the town accordingly. This public hearing will be reviewed at the zoning committee meeting on August 13th, 2018. Formal action is scheduled to take place at council's regular business meeting on August the 27th, 2018. We will begin with a, Bruce is going to start and give us a short overview. Then we will have a Barrel representative come and do the same, and then we will hear public comment.
Okay, just to take care of some administrative items before we get started on this hearing. First, this was reviewed by the Planning Commission on June 5th, 2018, and it was recommended that it go to a public hearing, that everything was in order to move on to the public hearing. The application was also sent to the Allegheny County Economic Development, the Planning Department, and we did not receive a comment. They received it, they indicated they received it, and they want a copy of the ordinance if it is approved. This was also advertised twice in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, as is required by the municipality's planning code, and letters were sent to all the adjoining property owners, and all but one, who is actually the owner, representing the owner of one of the properties, were picked up. We send them certified. And also there is an agreement for sale on the one property which is not owned in the ownership of the applicant. So what this is a sort of a peninsula of property which there were, through many rezoning attempts in the past, because the one property was not in ownership of Beryl, was never rezoned, and it was left residential, so the person that was in ownership of the property could live on the residential property. So rather than for me to go into any detail at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Christina Melkin, who is the attorney representing the applicant.
I just one quick question. Was that other property, the doctor's property, who is now since passed away?
No.
Okay, that's all I thought.
No.
Just please proceed.
I made a promise on that. May it please the council, my name is Attorney Christina McCandless. I have the honor and privilege of representing the Beryl Automotive Group, and I'm here to request rezoning for a parcel of property, and forgive me while I step up here. I'm requesting rezoning for this property that is located here. This house was owned still by Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I found Mr. Smith here. And he's the person that did not sign for his certified mail, just so that but he's here. What it is that this parcel was owned by his mom, and he'll speak to the facts and circumstances of why he's going to be selling it to Beryl. But as you can see, it's right, it has 3 sides of parking surrounding it. So that's why I think he's agreeable and amenable to selling it to us. Also, his mom has now had to enter into nursing care. So it's time. The other parcel of property that we're addressing is a parcel where we've had long-standing parking on it. I think the parking may actually predate our ownership and the zoning ordinance. And the reason that we bought this parcel was because of that corner there. What we're seeking to do is have this rezoned commercial, and we want to have a buffer area for green space ensured as well as a part of this rezoning. The property owner here is Beryl Chevrolet Inc. Lee Beryl lives here, so we want to make sure that we handle the property appropriately and make sure that it's in conformance with our standards as a community. We will have to meet all those rigorous requirements of site plan approval that Bruce is sure to ensure that we're going to have to meet. I've talked to one other resident with regard to that, and that's this property here, who is adjacent to us. He's going to have a couple of concerns that he wants to have addressed, and we're going to respectfully request that we all ensure that those get addressed. First of all, he's worried about stormwater management, which we will be addressing through site plan approval. He's also worried there's a pond in here. He would like to have that cleaned out, and I've spoken with the representative of Beryl, and we are more than happy to clean out that pond and make sure that it's maintained appropriately. And then the other concern with the stormwater management, I don't know what everyone's familiarity is with the municipality's planning code, but it requires that we decrease stormwater runoff. And this gentleman is very concerned about that, and he'll speak to it, but I wanted to make sure that you have our assurances that we will make sure that we're doing everything in an appropriate fashion. What we're planning on putting here is a parking lot. As I'm sure you're all shocked here, we'll make sure that the water runoff is piped under the parking lot as is normal, and Dan Gratian, who's our engineer, will speak to that. And I mean, it's a fairly standard plan, but we want to make sure that we're respectful of the community and the neighbors. So that's our goal for this evening.
Thank you.
Dan, do you want to describe the plan and speak to it?
That was about it. The purpose of the application is simply to add parking. If you've been to these dealerships to buy a car, to have your car serviced, you can see how busy they are. They are in need of more space to park, so really the sole purpose is to expand those lots. There's no buildings proposed at all. It's simply an expansion of this lot in this direction over these two properties. And again, we would comply with whatever applicable township rules are in place to do that. We've already expanded this lot a few years ago, and I think did a nice job with that. So that's really why we're here today, is just to expand those parking lots.
Can I ask some questions of the applicant, just for clarification purposes?
Surely.
Okay.
So, Dan, will you point out, Mr. McKim asked in the beginning about the doctor's house. Do you know what house he's talking about? It's actually Lee's house.
It's Lee's house.
Can you point that out?
Sure. Lee Burrow lives in this house.
So, and that one is not, this was subject to a previous lawsuit, and we came to an agreement as part of that lawsuit. We came to a settlement that lot would not ever be rezoned. That was Christina's promise. So that is not part of this rezoning. And could you also point out we have Brad Knock, who is the representative,
Keith is here.
the other Brad Knock.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry, Keith.
That's okay.
It's not often we get two Knocks in one meeting.
Related, I checked.
So anyways, Brad, I might as well just do it myself rather than ask you. Brad lives here, and the applicant is proposing a 100-foot buffer here in addition to the standard buffer. And that would be in some way dedicated as green space. And Gavin and I have talked about it, and I've also talked about it with Christina as what the best way to do that is. I've also talked about it with Brad. So we've got to come to some conclusion as what is the best way to protect that property in perpetuity. So we haven't come to an agreement as to how that will happen, but we do want it to happen, and the applicant's willing to do that. And the stormwater, Brad does have some concerns about it, and some legitimate concerns. We've had, I wasn't aware of it until I talked to Brad. I knew that we had the one episode early on that was resolved, we thought. He's had 2 more episodes since then, and we want to get that permanently resolved. So just
Bruce,
wanted to point those things out. Yes,
Bruce,
sir.
the property that's dedicated for environmental purposes, how is it currently zoned?
It is zoned R2.
And how are they asking for a rezoning on that piece of
Yes, and the reason for the
C3?
rezoning is for setback purposes, because the setback is from R2, the 100-foot required setback is from the R2 properties. So this would be more than just a setback requirement. It would be so that they couldn't put a parking lot or anything else there. Setbacks deal with buildings. So the 100-foot that would be dedicated in perpetuity or upon agreement of all the property owners, however that legal agreement would work, wouldn't have anything other than the stormwater and plantings.
Thank you, Bruce.
There's a couple other issues that I just wanted to address too that I inadvertently left out. This is going to be an unlit parking lot. We are not going to be doing any type of lighting, so there will be no lighting shining in to the neighbor's property. We will make that a condition of site plan approval, and Mr. Betty is well aware of that. The other thing is we will limit car use hours to, I believe, let me tell you what. We'll limit the hours of operation so that we're not getting anyone up early in the morning. 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. would be the latest and the earliest that we would be planning on operating that. So those are the limitations that we also plan on putting on the lot as well, just so that you're generally aware that we're not going to be shining lights into the neighbors' properties. Do you have any other questions?
I think we'll ask our questions at the next meeting.
Madam Chair, I have one,
Okay.
if I may. So to protect that land, it sounds like the ownership would stay with Burroughs, and would the thought be a conservation easement then in perpetuity?
That's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I think council, the solicitor's office may have some concerns with how we dedicate it, because he does not want the municipality to become in any way, shape, or form responsible for the maintenance of that. And the adjacent neighbor, I did speak with him, and he's a little uncomfortable with how we're gonna handle this too. He does not want any responsibility for maintenance. So whatever we need to do to fashion that, we need to make sure that we're not making either the municipality or the adjacent neighbor responsible for maintenance, that it's always gonna stay with Beryl. That's why we're keeping it in fees.
Thank you.
Okay?
That was part of my question.
Okay.
The other question, these lots that you're adding, that's currently all pervious soil. Are you looking or considering in any way a pervious pavement for these lots?
I'll let the engineer answer that
That's
question.
a possibility. If the township rules allow that, we've done that at other locations. Generally, McCandless likes a paved surface for a parking lot, but we have done other kinds of surfaces, and if that's possible, we would look at that,
You'd
yes.
be open to
During
this?
site plan design, yes.
All right, well, thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any comments from any citizens? Okay. Please come up to the microphone and say your name.
Good evening. Brad Knock, 204 Ashley Court. I've lived there since about 1999, and I've probably had about 6 major water runoff issues with the Beryl Chevrolet. And as they say, everything runs downhill. I have the pleasure of living downhill. My biggest concern is the water runoff. Initially, when I moved in, I had 2 or 3 instances where I absorbed the cost myself to clean it up. I approached at that time when Mr. William Beryl was alive to see if we could remedy the situation. He didn't think it was his issue. I then contacted Bruce, who then brought in his stormwater engineer. He performed a study, and then it did determine that Beryl was responsible for the water runoff. They fixed it. I was assured that when it happened again, and, I took them on their word. They've always been a good neighbor. My issue is that several years later, the hillside even slid worse, more flooding, more water runoff, after they assured me that it would be fixed. So my concern today is the engineer will say, we'll do it correctly, you're not going to have runoff. How do we know that? I'm now getting more runoff on the back end of my property where I can't attribute it to the new parking lot that they built, but I had to come in and trench the back of my yard just to take the runoff. I'll be more than happy to send a video and email pictures for you to look at that as well. The retention pond, I'll take pictures of that as well. It's not normal. From my standpoint, it's a health risk. The water is stagnant and it harbors all sorts of bugs, especially mosquitoes. We have some issues with trash. Again, Beryl has always come and had employees pick it up, but with more cars and more vehicles, are we going to have more of an issue? We do live in a neighborhood, not a parking lot. And the lawyer did address the fact that it will be an unlit parking lot, but are there guarantees in 5 years from now, if this is accepted, will they say, well, we need some lighting for security, that sort of thing. And I think, if we can work through this and we get some assurances, I would like to have that in writing. I'm not a legal scholar, but I certainly want to take someone's word on it that they'll do the right thing. But it's certainly important to have something in writing. Thank you.
Any other comments from citizens?
I wasn't planning on speaking, but I will. All right. My name is Brian Smith, and my mother and father owned the house that is in the orange, so it's circled on. It's 3/4 all the way around. Yes, that was where my mom and dad lived for about 30 years. And so since my father has passed away and my mother, we've had to move her to special care in Kentucky. as the executor of the estate and taking care of her property, we are trying to obviously sell this to the person who is the most suitable and the most likely person to benefit from it, because it's hard to sell this piece of property as a residential property. We had it on the market for a while, and it's very difficult to pull in and drive between car dealerships and parking lots, and you are literally surrounded on 3 sides right now with parking lots and the automotive dealership that really nobody wants to live in that house anymore. It was a great home for my mom and dad, and so now we're kind of in a situation that the most logical buyer would be Beryl to be able to use it for business. And so my appeal to you would just be in consideration for the situation we're in, for having a home that was a residence that belonged to our family, and it is the means by which we're going to be able to have the proceeds in order to continue to take care of my mom while she's in her late years in life. She's in her mid to late 80s right now. So that would be my appeal, is just as her son and taking care of that property for her benefit. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any other citizens? Yes, ma'am.
I am Celia Mayenza, and my house is probably at the point of the blue.
Yes.
We are right next to Brad and Stephanie.
Yes,
And
you
we
are.
are essentially a direct hit for all things runoff. And
Ma'am,
have
please
managed.
address the chair.
We have managed the runoff from the change of that area to be the parking lot, the most recent change. We had some clearing from when Mr. Barrow redid the Ochoa's home, and we've just managed that ourselves. We have not done anything outside of French drains on the inside. We've dug around the outside, but we get everything that comes off of 19, and that does not seem like it's going to help our cause at all. We have a very, very old home, and it's just going to get much less easier to manage. And then the lighting issue, of course, I'm extremely concerned about. We have woods behind us. I don't know how much is going to be cleared, because I can't remember exactly how close that comes in there, but there definitely would have to be assurances that there would be no ever lighting. But even a paved surface, that's a sloped hillside. There would have to be a tremendous amount of fencing and plantings and to cut that erosion. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from any of the citizens?
Yeah, my name is Michael Gronsky. I'm 136 Montclair Avenue. Michael S. Gronsky. I just wanted to say that the Barrows have been a great pillar of the community forever, for a long time. The family going from Bill Barrow, Bob Barrow, Bill Barrow, Lee Barrow, all the way through. I know, and I would trust them, quite honestly. And if they said they would do something, if they would take care of this land and make those agreements with these people, they would live up to their bargain. Okay? They've been here forever. They add a lot of vitality to the community. McCandless, Franklin Park, even up Pine Township. They've been around a long time, and I think they should be given every opportunity to make it right with the people. But it has to be made right with the people, too. And I think you could take the Barrows at their word. Thank you.
Bruce, whose responsibility is it to keep the pond unclogged?
During our research, we found that pond probably wasn't ever a stormwater maintenance, stormwater detention facility. It's just a pond. That would probably be more, it's something that we could work with them to get it cleaned up under any circumstances. But I don't believe it's a stormwater maintenance facility. At least I could never find a record of it. No, that's.
You're saying work with who? Who would you have to work with?
With the owners of the property.
And who are the owners?
Barrels.
Okay.
But we don't have a specific rule that deals with standing ponds. It would be more of a public health issue, but we could work with Barrels to get it cleaned up under any circumstances. And I believe if this would go through, it certainly would be would certainly be cleaned up. That would be a requirement of our approval.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing for the request from Beryl Chevrolet. We move on now to reports of the committees. Finance and Personnel Committee.
Madam Chairman, I move to ratify check listing number 6 dated June 7th, 2018 through July the 3rd, 2018, totaling $583,160.47 as submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and town website.
Is there a second?
Second.
There has been a motion and a second to accept the ratification of the submitted bills. Are any questions by council? Any comments by council? Any questions or comments from citizens? Hearing none, there has been a motion, a second, and no question. All those in favor of ratifying checklist listing number 6 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Zoning Committee.
I move I repeat, not to adopt ordinance number 1477, an ordinance amendment proposed by Sheets to amend conditional use standards to allow 2 service stations at a signalized intersection with a residential commercial zoning district.
Can I suggest that, your motion is basically, motion to not adopt it is really not a motion. Maybe we want to let someone who, just so you can have debate, if there is someone wanting to make the motion to approve it, that would be appropriate, and then obviously you're not locked into your vote, whoever makes the motion in seconds. But a motion not to adopt is really not appropriate for the council. So can I just make that request that you withdraw that motion, and just to kind of clean it up for the minutes, so we have someone make a motion to approve that ordinance, whether or not, if there is that motion, if someone's willing to make that motion.
Yeah, I'll withdraw it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt Ordinance 1477, an ordinance amendment proposed by Sheets Incorporated to amend conditional use standards to allow 2 service stations at a signalized intersection within the residential commercial RC zoning district.
Is there a second?
I second.
There's been a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1477. Are there comments or questions by council?
I have a comment. The stated reason of this proposed amendment is to amend the conditional use criteria for service stations to permit up to 2 service stations in the RC residential commercial district to be located within 1,500 feet of each other only when the stations are located at the same signalized intersection. It's supposedly to improve traffic safety. Currently, the zoning code requires that the location of a gas station be 1,500 feet minimum from each other. For example, under the provisions of the current zoning code, a gas station could not be built across the street from the current Sheets at Montclair Avenue without violating this provision. On the other hand, a gas station could be put in at the only other signalized intersection, the RC Residential Commercial District, that is Perrymont Road and Perry Highway. The east side of Perrymont Road has sites that are more than 1,500 feet from the current Sheets. They would not meet the 1,500 feet requirement if this proposed amendment is passed and a new Sheets is built at Montclair Avenue. It is difficult to determine exactly what the result would be without a concept plan being submitted with the proposed text amendment. However, I believe it would not. Perrymont Road would not be within, would not meet the requirement of a new 1,500 feet requirement. But having 2 stations at the only 2 signalized intersections in the RC commercial district, there's only two intersections, one at the current Sheets location and one at Perrymont Road, would be safer than having 2 across the street from each other. One at Old Perry Highway, where the current Sheets is located, and the other one, the proposed new sheets at Montclair Avenue. Bear with me and allow me to examine this issue a little further. Mr. Wooster, Sheets' traffic engineer at the July 9, 2018 Zoning Committee meeting, said that there is projected to be 1,628 trips per day at the new sheets, and that currently there are approximately 30-something less than at the current sheets. Therefore, the current sheets location, there must be approximately 1,140 trips per day. Let's assume that the trips to the old sheets continue to be 1,140 trips per day. The new sheets is projected to be 1,628 trips per day. Even if Sheets built the 2 turn lanes, which I am sure would be one of the conditions we would try to impose on Sheets for this project, would the additional 1,628 trips per day at the Old Perry Highway and Perry Highway intersection be safer than keeping the 1,140 trips per day at Old Perry Highway and Perry Highway and moving the 1,628 trips a day to Perrymont and Perry Highway? It does not seem logical to me that it would. Remember, if you put a gas station on Montclair, you're probably eliminating a gas station being allowed at Perrymont Road because of the 1,500-foot requirement. But no one seriously thinks in their heart that traffic safety is a real reason for this proposed amendment. Even Attorney Wotus, Sheets' attorney, according to the town's April 23, 2018 regular business meeting minutes at page 3, which reads as follows. For clarification, he, Attorney Wotus, also reported that the proposed amendment was submitted on behalf of Sheets due to concerns that the developer could not meet established criteria and was requested as a result of a property owner dispute. So the real reason for the proposed amendment is that Sheets wants it so they can build 8 new sheets at Montclair. It is not to improve traffic safety. In addition, there are currently no real traffic issues to warrant this type of construction outlined by Sheets with the consequences of that construction. The only real traffic problem is getting out of Montclair Avenue and the business establishments on the east side of Perry Highway near Montclair Avenue. For years, I was a customer of Superior Pools that is located at one of those properties, and if I exercised caution, I could pull out of the driveway, which is also Todd Roll's driveway, and turn left onto Perry Highway to go south on Perry Highway without any incident. Going north on Perry Highway was never a problem. It is, as Linda Hamilton of Montclair testified at the June 25, 2018 Town Council meeting, you learn to live with it. There are plenty of areas throughout McCandless that if you don't exercise caution, you can be in an accident. For example, leaving my home on Edward Road on the south side of Perrymont, there is a sharp bend from the left on Perrymont where the speed limit is reduced to 20 miles per hour. If you don't exercise real caution and someone is speeding, you're liable to get hit by a car going east on Perrymont to McKnight Road, especially in the winter when there is often ice at the end of Edward. Several neighbors wanted a 4-way stop sign. I'm not one of them, even though I walk the area almost every day. One neighbor wrote to town requesting a stop sign. Thankfully, the 4 stop signs are not there. It would be a case of overkill. Mr. Mike Gronsky testified at the June 25, 2018 regular business meeting of Town Council that based on information received from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, which he submitted to each member of Town Council, a total of 16 accidents for the 3-year period, January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2017, for the area that includes Montclair Avenue, Gloria Street, and Old Perry Highway at Perry Highway, near the current Sheets location. In addition, at the July 9th, 2018 committee meeting, I said for the 6-month period ending June 30th, 2018, there were 2 accidents based on the McCandless police accident reports and no injuries from those accidents. Mr. Wooster, Traffic engineer for Sheets testified at the June 9th, 2018 meeting also. Quoting attorney Joseph Mystic, Sheets' expert witness who testified on clustering at the June 25th, 2018 Town of McCandless meeting, Mr. Wooster testified at the July 9th, 2018 meeting that clustering, I would agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Mystic that taking effect of those uses at traffic signal is most appropriate for traffic safety. I recall Attorney Mystic saying a spacing requirement creates a monopoly, and that clustering enables businesses to share in the infrastructure costs, sort of like the concept of creating business synergies does in the mergers and acquisitions areas. But not once in the approximate 5 minutes he spoke, at approximately the 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 32-second period to the 1 hour, 30-minute, 48-minute mark of the June 25th, 2018 meeting, did he mention safety or traffic safety? I've reviewed the Town of McCandless traffic reports for the calendar year 2017. According to those reports, there were 3 accidents with 2 injuries at Gloria Street and Perry Highway, and 2 accidents with 3 injuries at Montclair. Although when I compared the McCandless police traffic reports with the PennDOT reports, there were only 4 total injuries of unknown severity listed in the PennDOT reports. It's possible that none of those accidents would have been avoided by turn lanes of the kind Sheets presented, since Gloria Street and Montclair are side streets. I would need additional information to determine this fact with reasonable certainty. When my wife and I travel to and from a location near Sheets 4 times a week at approximately 6:30 a.m., other than seeing a person run the red light on July 19th, 2018, I've never witnessed anything unusual or an accident. In addition, my wife and I travel past Sheets when we go to our grandchildren's hockey games at the Youth Center, and when we go to Costco and other stores. I've traveled to and from Gloria Street, and the only problem I noticed with Gloria Street was the steepness of the hill. I have had occasion to go in and out of Montclair Avenue, in part to give the residents notice of an upcoming hearing on Sheets. One resident mentioned to me that he had trouble getting out of Montclair Avenue as some of the vehicles parked at AMCO, located on the south corner of Montclair Avenue at 8436 Perry Highway, obstruct the vision of a person pulling out of Montclair. At a meeting with Police Chief Santee on July 16, 2018, the chief assured me that he has talked to an AMCO person, and there will be no more vehicles parked in such a manner so as to obstruct vision of those coming out of Montclair, or they will be cited. Clearly, taking small cost-wise actions such as common courtesy actions of eliminating parking at Montclair and Perry Highway that obstruct vision should be tried before we embark on a major traffic change that will cost $1.6 million and drastically impact residential neighborhoods. To allow this project to be built on a site that includes 131 Montclair, which is clearly wrongly zoned as C3 Highway Commercial District, and should be rezoned by Town Council, is an injustice. Montclair Avenue is a street with 17 homes on it that ends in a dead end. It is clearly not a highway. To have listened to the residents of Montclair, Casa Grande, and Prescott and not have your heart touched is beyond belief. Before you vote, ask yourself this question: how would I like it if someone bought the house and land of a home in my neighborhood, tore down the house that had been there for over 100 years as a residential home, and built a 24/7 convenience store? That is what is proposed to happen at 131 Montclair, and what is proposed to happen in the Montclair neighborhood. Allowing this proposed amendment, which clearly wasn't initiated to promote traffic safety, to become part of the zoning code, paves the way for this result. None of the surrounding communities, Ross Township with its Sheets facility at Babcock Boulevard and Cemetery Lane with no residential homes are on it, Ohio Township with 2 Sheets locations, one at Mount Nebo Road exit exit off of Route 79, and the other on Mount Nebo at the entrance to the Mount Nebo Point Shopping Center, both with no residential homes around it. Wexford, with its Sheets location at 910 and Nicholson Road near Route 79, has no residential homes around it. There are others, such as Cranberry Township and Hampton Township. Their town councils did not approve a new Sheets project in an area with residential homes, and neither should we. We should not allow this neighborhood to be trashed for any reason, let alone for some unquantified and unspecified general welfare of the community. Thank you.
Are there any more comments or questions from town council? All right, thank you. Any more comments or questions from town council?
I'm not really sure where I would comment. The first half of it seems to be confused on how many seats you think are going to be at the intersection. I do have a question though. Where do you think that there's going to be where there could be another gas station put in at Perrymont, since there's literally not enough room between any of the property lines and the current Sheets that you could put one in there with that 1,500-foot rule? None of the property lines from property line to property line are within 1,500 feet.
Well, they're on the, as you're coming up Perrymont to Perry Highway, on the left side of Perry Highway, Perrymont, on the left side of Perrymont, you could put one there. That's not within 1,500.
On that little tiny lot that's nowhere near big enough.
Well, it's just
Or are
for
they gonna
safety.
tear down the
And
big
the other
building?
side also. The
And
other
the
side
church?
of Perrymont Road, on the right side of Perrymont, you could.
The church.
No,
They're
no,
gonna
no.
tear down the church?
No, no,
He's talking
no.
about the tanning salon.
Where the tanning salon is.
It's that building that's there.
There's not enough room between the tanning salon and property line to property line. There's not 1,500 feet. According to Google
Between
Maps.
what?
According to Google Maps, there's not enough room between the tanning salon and the Sheets to put a
The
Sheets
current
in there.
Sheets?
Right.
Well, here's what we did. My wife and I, we rode Saturday. We did three measurements, and we came up to Perrymont and turned right to go into the lot on the right side, and then from there we set the trip meter, and then rode up to the Sheets, and it was 0.3 miles, and 0.3 miles equals 5,280 feet in a mile. 0.3 miles is clearly over 1,500 feet.
Any
So
more-
tripometer in your car.
Any more
Well, the
comments?
trip meter. Go ahead.
Okay. And are you saying that no one's been hurt enough yet at the intersection to warrant?
Well, we have other
changes in the
places that are just
intersection?
as dangerous.
Well, of course, we would want to fix all of those intersections. You would think you'd want to fix the intersections that are dangerous, not say, well, if you're cautious, you won't get hurt too badly.
No, if you're cautious, you won't be hit at all. That's what I'm saying. Unless someone's running a red light.
I don't know, I pulled out of that Montclair 7 or 8 times since this happened, and all of them were dangerous, even the 2 o'clock in the morning one seemed dangerous.
So you pulled out of where, though?
Montclair, trying to turn left, and out of the A1 Comfort / Superior Pools driveway, which seemed even more dangerous.
Wait
And
a
I would
second.
definitely
At
not
what
wanna
ti-
do
at
that.
What time of night?
I went up at 2 o'clock the one night. I've been up there at 12. I've been up there at 10. I've been up there at 6 in the afternoon. I've been there
Well, the one
at
at
7 in
two.
the morning.
The one at 2. What was the purpose of that visit?
Just to see how the lighting. It was literally to drive up down Montclair, drive back down, go down Casa Grande or whatever it is, the terrace.
So you pulled into Todd Roll's driveway and to check the lighting on Sheets?
To see what lighting you could see from the lower levels down on Casa Grande. When I went down to Casa Grande and Terrace and looked up, I could see one bright light up on the hill. That happens to be the porch light of the 2nd-story apartment on Todd Rule's place, which I couldn't tell what that was from down at the bottom. I drove up to see what the porch light was, to see what that light was. And I'm telling you, you can't, even in the middle of the night, you can't safely see what light is turned when there's no light facing you. It is not a safe way to pull out of that place to see.
Well, I can only tell you that I used to be a customer at Superior Poles, and we used to have to go up there. I used to have to drive up there to get checks on the water, checks on the minerals, and I had no trouble. I had no trouble at all. I had to be careful, but I had no trouble.
Well, the idea of having to be careful at one of the most
Well, I have to be
used
careful. I
intersections.
have to be careful when I cross Perrymont at Edgewood. There's to my left. There's a there's a sharp bend. And you
Yeah, I
have to
know.
be
It's the
careful.
garage house with the carriage on the front of the house. I know where the house is. It seems, I'll look it up.
Are there any other comments?
Madam President, one comment. You know, I believe that Mr. Mystic did make a valid point with regard to the age of our ordinance and the need for updating. But I heard a lot of residents make a lot of also very valid points and shared real concerns with this council. It's my understanding that you know, it is the town's hope, and I think the property owners, the commercial property owners, as well as the residents, to see redevelopment, commercial redevelopment occur there at some point. If this proposal is brought before us, that Sheets is talking about, that would be a conditional use proposal, is my understanding. It would give this council great power to apply conditions to the approval process to protect those residents. And I think we should consider that and appreciate that opportunity that we have, because that property will in fact be redeveloped at some point. And if it's not a conditional use, we will be in no position beyond the zoning to protect those residents from the light pollution, the sound, et cetera. Thank you.
Can I respond to that? Or what?
Sure. You okay, yes?
But the convenience store, the 24/7 convenience store, is going to be put on a lot that is 131 Montclair. It's right in the neighborhood. It's not on the fringes of the neighborhood. It's in the neighborhood.
It's
that
highway
makes
commercial.
a big difference. Well, it's wrongly.
It
zoned.
doesn't matter if you
Well, we
think
could
it's wrong.
we could amend that.
No, you can't. You can't take somebody's property and say, "Oh, this used to be a highway commercial, but we're going to cut its value by 2/3
Well,
because
wait a second.
we don't like
Wait
the
a
way
second.
it was
It's
zoned."
been, for tax purposes, it's been listed as residential. So for tax
Again.
purposes, they've been listing it as residential.
And you can change that. You can look at it and say, well, if you're going to be zoned highway commercial, you're going to. That place was put in for a mechanics garage. That was the reason that highway commercial property was zoned that way, which I can't even imagine anybody thinking that a mechanics garage would be better than a Sheets. But as far as your turning left on Perrymont from Edgewood, that's 205 feet of visibility before the curve.
Turning on left.
You said the dangerous area of turning left off of Edgewood onto Perrymont? That's 205 feet of visibility at a 20-mile-an-hour zone. And it doesn't even compare to highway Sheets.
Coming out from the left of Sheet, the
If you're
east.
coming out from Edgewood, like you said, dangerous conditions.
Yeah.
If you're coming out from Edgewood, visibility is 205.96 feet.
On the right or left-hand side of Edgewood?
On the left. On the right, it's probably hundreds of feet, just at least 300 feet.
May I ask, isn't the Sheets going on Perry Highway?
Yes.
The
It's
gas
not-
station is, but the convenience store is going to, why are they taking 131 Montclair? The convenience store is going to be on 131 Montclair.
But these are all things that should be done during the conditional use hearing.
No. You pass this ordinance, you pass this amendment, you're gonna pave the way for the Sheets to come in. You're not gonna be able to put reasonable conditions in that, for example, you won't be able to put the lighting is only allowed between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m.
Why can't we do that?
Well, you wouldn't.
Why
You
can't
wouldn't
we
You
do
think
that
you're,
6 a.m. to
you
10.
think you're
You
going to
can't.
get them to approve that? To approve that?
Well,
Or
if they
agree to that?
don't
Right, but
follow
you
our
can-
conditions, then they don't go in.
No, your conditions have to be reasonable.
Well,
No,
are you saying,
they'll
are you
consider,
saying
they'll
that's
consider that's
unreasonable?
an unreasonable. No, I consider it reasonable, especially when you're in a residence.
Well, then you just
But you're not in a
contradicted
residential zone,
yourself.
you're in a highway commercial zone. That they're asking to downplay to is an RC zone, a residential commercial zone, which is a lower level than the highway commercial.
All right.
You are asking them to take, they are asking to take a highway commercial and reduce it to the level of residential commercial.
No, I'm saying take a highway commercial.
You're saying override you're saying
Yeah,
right of eminent
I'm
domain,
saying-
override the property owner's rights completely and just
Right.
take that.
Yeah, it's spot zoning. There's no difference between that residence, that 131 Montclair, and the rest of the residents. That is definitely a spot zoning issue.
Except for it's been already zoned.
Well, that's what the heck. That's what the spot zoning's all about.
Okay. Anything else from council? All right. Comments from citizens?
Do you want to, Madam Chair, do you want to give the applicant the option to either speak at the end of public comment, or do you want them to go now? Do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference, whatever council would prefer. We're happy to speak first, we're happy to speak last.
That's fine. It's fine. You can speak now.
Okay. Good evening. Ryan Wotus, counsel here on behalf of Sheets. As discussed, there has been considerable amount of testimony and comments from both the applicant, their experts, the public, and council as well. But what I'd like to focus on is the town of McCandless' own policy and looking at the existing comprehensive plan that has been adopted by this board previously. What it states specifically in that comprehensive plan is that this is the primary document for guiding McCandless in decisions relating to the future development of the town. It furthers, this creates a blueprint for land use patterns for tomorrow. In the comprehensive plan, it specifically states that the town should develop plans working closely with property owners and developers to promote the future growth of the RC district. It says every effort should be made to encourage renovations and new construction to continue the improvements made to date under the RC regulations. The RC district is a gateway to McCandless, and it presents significant challenges in need of attention. Your comprehensive plan also provides specific pictures with respect to the redevelopment of the RC district that encourages larger scale developments utilizing several parcels, and says specifically this would provide for local services and improve the quality of life for the residents of McCandless. It further states these kinds of improvements would help attract new families to these neighborhoods and could provide convenient village centers.
Please, be respectful. Be respectful.
Again, I am reading the town's own policy. This has been adopted by the town. These are not my words, these are the town's. And says, and it could provide convenient village centers for shopping and recreation. The term has been passed around nodes of activity. That's what this proposal does. It focuses on creating a node of activity. And this amendment furthers those goals of the comprehensive plan. In addition, there's been 3 experts that have testified on this matter that further that comprehensive plan and that goal through discussions with respect to traffic, environmental, and then also land use itself. As discussed, Chuck Wooster, on behalf of D.E. Wooster and Associates, spoke as an expert in this matter. He's a professional engineer and certified as a professional traffic operations engineer. He testified extensively regarding the ongoing historic safety issues resulting from the current configuration of Perry Highway, and specifically with respect to the intersection at Old Perry Highway, Gloria, and including Montclair and the existing driveways that access directly into that intersection. He also discussed the need for upgrades to be made to the intersection significantly to improve that access, and he indicated that these have been warranted for 20 years or more, these improvements. He outlined and showed the proposed realignment of that roadway, which would result from an adoption of this text amendment and the future development. That plan and traffic study, a copy of which had been provided to council, was also reviewed by the town traffic engineer and by PennDOT. As of today, there's no comments that remain outstanding from the town and their engineer, which is Trans Associates. And PennDOT has conditionally approved those traffic improvements. So this has already been reviewed on several fronts, and I believe there were 2 iterations and letters that went back and forth, and ultimately those comments were addressed by Mr. Worcester. Lastly, he did provide that locating this use at a signalized intersection would significantly improve safety over locating this use mid-block, where it's currently permitted in the RC district. In addition, Matt Cutshaw, who is a petroleum construction manager with Sheetz, spoke before council with respect to environmental issues. He testified regarding the manner and methods and significant environmental safety mechanisms and equipment that's utilized by Sheetz in the development of all their new stores. He spoke specifically with respect to there being 24-hour monitoring to detect for any potential leaks, and also discussed the vapor recovery system that's utilized as part of the underground storage system to capture vapor and prohibit it from leaking out, and also during fueling of the vehicles themselves. As also discussed, Professor Joe Mystic spoke as well. He's an associate professor at Duquesne University and teaches land use and also urban renewal law. He spoke about the desire to cluster these uses and create these nodes of activity, again, relating back to what the comprehensive plan ultimately desires for this RC district. In addition, the spacing requirements set forth in the conditional use criteria does not follow sound land use or planning under current best practices. Now, there has been obviously concerns and issues raised by residents and by council. As also indicated by council prior to me beginning my speaking here, is that a lot of those items are better addressed during the actual conditional use application that would be pending before this council, and also through the land development application, where this would be subject to additional review. Site plans would be provided, which we have not had the opportunity to go ahead and show to address a lot of those concerns and to discuss how they would be mitigated. A lot of concerns can be addressed through appropriate buffering, lighting controls, and landscaping, all of which has been incorporated into that plan, but again, we're not necessarily at that process yet because we're just here on a text amendment. And as indicated, outside of the conditional use criteria, there are reasonable conditions, again, that could be placed ultimately upon that approval. Based upon the foregoing, we believe that any future development of the gas station by Sheetz can be developed in harmony with the residential and existing commercial uses that are located there to create a benefit to both the town and the residents. Now, we recognize as council members, you are tasked with a difficult decision often in the daily life and votes that you need to take. However, we believe this request can be in following the direction provided by your own comprehensive plan in accordance with sound land use policy. Now, if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to address them. But otherwise, that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please come to the microphone and say your name. I thought you said you were done.
I am done, yes.
Oh.
We have one other individual that's going to speak directly to an item that has been raised before council. He'll briefly speak to the issue that's addressed where our Sheetz located next to residential uses.
Okay.
So we would like to present that information to council because we believe it to be relevant for the purpose of what was directly raised before.
Ma'am, you've already gotten up. If you just go ahead and say your statement, and then you can speak next.
Absolutely.
My name is Catherine Ban. I live on Casa Grande Drive. I know the people who live on Montclair. I also know the people that live on Tiara Court, that is underneath where this gas station is going to be built. I am appalled that the people in McCandless, that I have always been very proud to live here, would do that to 17 families and 4 more over on Tiara. I'm very dissatisfied, very unhappy, and I think you're very wrong in what you're doing to these people. Very, very wrong. It's tragic.
You want to do your presentation?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is David Mastro Stefano. I'm the in-house engineer and permit manager for Sheetz. What's being passed out by my colleague, and I'm here strictly to address one issue and one issue only, and that is Sheetz stores adjacent to, next to, or across from residential properties. being handed out to you is just a sampling. There are 18 Google Earth pictures in that packet. That packet outlines that Sheetz has built adjacent to, immediately across from local streets and roads. Some of those street stores are built across from other service stations and at intersections. I had mentioned in a previous meeting, I gave a small sampling, had mentioned Pennsylvania and Ohio projects. I'm only going to address Pennsylvania projects since that seemed to be an issue with mentioning other states. Sheetz operates 269 Sheetzes in Pennsylvania. 90 of them meet the criteria that I just mentioned, that being a Sheetz adjacent to, immediately adjacent to, directly across from a local street or alley, or in some cases across from or next to another gas station in residential units. So that's a third of the service stations in Pennsylvania that meet that criteria. The first item or the first drawing in this packet identifies a Sheetz store at a signalized intersection. You have residential across Airport Road, you have residential behind it, and to the bottom across the main road or the roadway is another gas station. If you flip over to the next page, we have, that's labeled 101 Nicholas Street. We have a Sheetz service station at an intersection, and you have residential on 3 sides adjacent to it, across an alley or a street.
Excuse me, sir. Could you identify the townships that these are in?
The first page is Hazel Township. The second page is Clearfield. Going on to the third page, the 105 Erie is in Mercer. This one also is at a signalized intersection, gas station across the street from it, and you have residential behind it. If you go to the fourth page, 118 Rosanna, that's in Somerset. Here we have residential behind it, residential across the street, and residential in front of it. I can go on and on and on. You have the pictures here, but I'm here again just letting you know that a third of the Sheetz stores in Pennsylvania are adjacent to, next to, across the street from residential at signalized intersections, and some are also across from other service stations. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Citizen comment.
Hi, Marilyn DeSanti, 8725 Casa Grande. It's interesting listening to all this because I did the research myself. I think I shared with you last week that I looked into these. There were 30 Sheetz, and out of those 30 Sheetz, there were 2 that I could see on a Google 360 that had any residential homes around them. And trust me, you wouldn't want to live in that neighborhood. I wish I would have been able to take snapshots so that you could see the residential neighborhoods. As I had mentioned, one of them had railroad tracks running the entire length of their street. If they were willing to have railroad tracks in front of their house, they're going to be willing to have a Sheetz in front of their house as well. The area, probably the biggest complaint that I have here is, most of these locations, I don't even know where they are. Excuse me, I'm not originally from Pittsburgh. But we're talking about our neighborhood. We're talking about the North Hills area. Why is it that we're the only one that is selected out of this entire neighborhood in the North Hills to have a house or have a gas station put in our residential neighborhood? It's just not right. Do we have any respect for our neighborhood? Do we have any, say in any of this? It's just maddening. I mean, I've lived in this neighborhood for 32 years. I would have never guessed in a million years this would have happened. And I have to agree that we aren't saying that we don't want anything built in our neighborhood. We just don't want a gas station. They mentioned that McIntyre Square had some kind of ruling that they weren't permitted to have a gas station in a neighborhood, or in their building or around their neighborhood. Why is it that we are able to do it if they had something in place saying that it couldn't be done? We want that in our neighborhood because we don't want a gas station here. and to listen to, them talk about how they want to attract people to the neighborhood. You're going to put a gas station in our backyard for these people that live on Tierra as well as Montclair, and you're going to actually attract people to our neighborhood. If nothing, you're just going to detract from the neighborhood, and you're going to prevent people from wanting to move here. I've lived here. This is actually my second house in my neighborhood because we love this neighborhood. That's how much we enjoy living here. But it's become just a mess between what's going on at McKnight Road and, God forbid, what's going to happen on 19 if you approve this. Please don't make that decision. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Lynn Doverspike, and I'm a resident of McCandless Crossing. And as Chairperson Kim Zachary mentioned, through McMail, I learned about the zoning request of Sheets. And as it happens, I have a brother that lives at 171 Montclair, Craig Doverspike. And he couldn't be here tonight because he's away on business. And I would like to appeal to the council to reflect on what you're taking into consideration when you vote, is that you already have a successful Sheets in place that's doing well. And if you vote for the ordinance change, you are going to make a number of your residents very unhappy. You're going to impact their quality of life in a very negative way. And reflect on what would you feel if you had a Sheets plopped down in your neighborhood and your driveway was 300 feet from that Sheets location. You have children playing, you have all kinds of activity that's going to be restricted now. Montclair is a no-outlet, quiet street. My brother's a quiet man. He likes it quiet. People bought there because they like the neighborhood and the attributes of the neighborhood. So please consider how you would be negatively impacting the absolute quality of life of the residents on Montclair and those surrounding streets. Thank you.
Rita Martin, Grubbs Road. You are already protected. These people, if they vote negatively, will be taking that protection away by allowing this gas station to go in. You are changing the rules for people that have lived there and are happy living there. And I agree with you, Mr. Walkoskis. I go to the pool place all the time. I never have any problems getting in or out. To hurt these people is just so unjust, and I hope that you make the right decision tonight.
Any other public comment? Come to the microphone.
Good evening. My name is Mark Boris. I reside on Peebles Road. Approximately 14 years ago this past Sunday, my wife and 4 children and I moved from the city of Pittsburgh, South Hills, Brookline, and up to the McCandless area. Our goal was to get in a safe area, an area that was evolving, an area that would grow over time, an area that would provide a good school district to my children as they grew up. With all due respect, Mr. Walkoskis, I actually work at A Comfort Service. I do residential and commercial sales. I am in a car in Hampton, Wexford, Cranberry, Fox Chapel, McCandless on a daily basis. Might I tell you, sir, that is one of the most dangerous intersections getting out of my office that I've experienced anywhere. You say 16 accidents were detailed. I can't tell you how many near accidents I see as I sit in my window in my office and pray and thank God that more people weren't injured or affected by that intersection. If you can get out of that intersection, like you say, making a left safely, you're living good and you're saying your rosary every day, because I pray every day that myself, my coworkers, and delivery drivers to that location get out of there safely, as well as that intersection across the street. I certainly can sympathize with you folks, and I wish at the end of the day something works out for the best for everyone. But if we're sitting up here as council members and as citizens, and we don't think that's a dangerous intersection, and we're going to base it all upon 16 accidents, then we're sadly mistaken that there is a greater issue with safety out there, and it needs to be addressed, and we have a responsibility to address it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Ban. I live on Casa Grande Drive. I have 2 points I want to make. One is we've spent an awful lot of time talking about traffic safety here, and we shouldn't have to rely on sheets to provide us with traffic safety. If this is really a dangerous intersection, let's fix it from the township side. We don't need sheets. For all of us and for all of you, I would guess, your home is probably the biggest investment you've ever made in your life. You depend on that home for your retirement, for equity, to borrow against it, to send your kids to college, things like that. There's no doubt in my mind, from what I've heard from some of the folks here, that those property values are going to go down if you put that sheets up there. Potential buyers are going to have a difficult time getting a mortgage. Again, assuming that all of the data is correct, that's going to hurt the township because the value of those homes goes down, the tax value of them goes down, and these people will suffer for that. No doubt when they reach retirement age, they'll have less equity in the home, less value. It'll be more difficult to sell it. So, you know, if it's a traffic issue, let's fix it. But let's not ignore the fact that there are 14 families down there who spent a lot of money buying and fixing up homes and building equity in them toward a retirement and toward a future for their children. So that's all I want to say about it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Chairman, may I make a comment? I'm not sure if the people in the area are aware that Sheets is planning on leaving in the first quarter of 2019. Are you aware of that? They're not going to stay where they are one way or the other.
All right, wait. This is it's comment time. There's not an interaction. Okay, next speaker, please. Thank you for your comment, Councilwoman.
My name is Jason Moots. I live at 160 Montclair. I'm absolutely flabbergasted to sit here, hear what Barrel's offering to their residents. They're giving a 100-foot barrier for an unlit parking lot with restricted time zones. We have 0-foot buffer with a 24-hour gas station next to our properties. They mailed their citizens certified mail to let them know about this. There are homes that are affected by this on East Fairview and Casa Grande that were never notified. Even Mr. Smith, who owns the property in question with the Barrel deal, said he's having trouble selling it because no one wants to live next to a parking lot. How would you feel about a gas station? I'm flabbergasted that you didn't know that 131 Montclair is where the convenience store would be going. This is in the residential neighborhood. I'm flabbergasted to hear Councilman Mertz say he doesn't want to devalue 131 Montclair's value by moving it to residential, considering it residential property. What about the 16 other homes that are going to be devalued on this street? I'm flabbergasted to hear that you believe you can control Sheets with conditional use. What are you going to say to them? They have to turn off their light canopies after 10 o'clock at night? They're going to come back to you and say, we'll get robbed. I mean, it's ludicrous to think that you would believe that. The story, quite frankly, here is you have 17 residents out of 23 homes between Montclair and Tierra that do not want this. We spoke out against it multiple times. I guess you're trying to prove our point that you can't fight City Hall. The only people that spoke for it were the business owners on 19, their employees, or we did have 2 residents that ultimately said they would feel different if it was in their neighborhood. I'd like to reestablish that I've brought up multiple times about FHA saying they will not insure mortgages for homes within 300 feet with an above storage gas or a below ground gas tank. I had to contact FHA again to prove it. I highlighted my conversation with them. Quite frankly, the director for Pennsylvania, her name is Linda, she's out of the Philadelphia office, could not believe that my city council would not believe me when I said that. She couldn't believe that the Sheets attorney adopted the law that way, how he presented to you last week. Her number's on there, the case file's on there. Feel free to call her if you don't believe me. I'm also flabbergasted that Sheets is all about how they want to increase property value. Like my neighbor Marilyn said, these other areas are not comparable to ours. The one that I brought up last week was down, and it's probably the closest, is in New Kensington. The average home sale price there was $56,000 or $58,000. There was a 5-bedroom home that sold for $12,000. I mean, what's Sheets going to argue? That they raised the value from $10,000 because their station was there? The other thing I wanted to point out once again, too, is Mr. Rule has come up here, and he just had another employee come up tonight saying that, you know, he's all about safety and he wants to improve the neighborhood. But 2 weeks ago, he was out in the parking lot yelling at Sheets reps as well as Bruce about how much money he's going to lose in this deal. And he called the residents of Montclair Avenue mother effers because we're trying to shut this down. How much is his driveway worth for this? $500,000, $1 million, $2 million? Can he justify this for us? We've heard Mr. Praiser say he's not going to fix up his property because he can't get more rent for it. That's one of the properties in question. We all fix up our 100-year-old houses, and there's not a problem with it. What I challenge the council for McCandless to do is take an active role in redeveloping this area. Don't sit back and let Sheets dictate what goes on in our area. You 7 members of council should reach out to CCAC. Maybe see if they'd give part of their auxiliary parking lot up to the current owner of Sheets so that they could redevelop and build what they want where they're currently located. They probably won't listen to Sheets and they won't listen to the residents here, but they will listen to you. The other thing I wanted to present is maybe we do a property swap. Maybe the lots in question at Montclair become the auxiliary parking lot for Sheets, and Sheets gets to expand in the auxiliary parking lot for CCAC. McCandless needs to stick to its 10-year plan and redevelop the area responsibly. They did it down in Brookline where they came in, put in street lamps, sidewalks. We could put in sidewalks all the way from the Ross border to Cumberland. Make this a truly vibrant residential and commercial area, but do it responsibly. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Before you go on, sir, I just wanted to clarify that there's been discussion about this FHA financing. So council did ask our office to look into it as well. Largely, not disputing what Mr. Moots has presented here. You know, there are 3 residential properties surrounding Sheets that would be potentially affected and ineligible for FHA financing. Now, that's just one type of financing. You could also purchase these properties with conventional financing, but there are 3 properties that would, on its surface, be ineligible for FHA financing. A waiver could be requested, but there's no way to say whether that would be granted. So there would be 3 residential properties that would likely be ineligible for FHA financing should this Sheets ultimately get developed. Now,
I'm sorry, no.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Do you know which 3 properties, is one of them the vacant property that the bank owns?
I don't know that. Bruce, could you go ahead and answer that question?
I'm not sure I don't know which one you're talking
The
about.
lot right behind 131.
Yeah, that would be one of them.
That's what I thought.
The other one, I believe, would be
on
Caddy
Casa
Corner,
Grande,
and the other one
would be at the corner of
Yeah, the measurement, just to be clear, is to the edge of the residential lot, from the actual tank itself, thank you, to the edge of the residential lot. And that was where the measurement was done.
What you're saying is 2 homes that are resided in have the potential to be affected.
Again, I don't know the area. I just, you know, and
Well,
I'm
if there's
basing-
3 of them and one of them is a bank-owned vacant lot property with the roof cup falling in and the property and the plaster on this floor.
It could theoretically be redeveloped at some point, though, and that issue could arise. So, I mean,
Right.
I don't know for sure, but that's my understanding. Bruce, is that consistent with your understanding of the radius? Okay.
How do you know the location of the tanks without a concept plan?
That's a good question. Do you know where that measurement started, Bruce?
During the original conditional use proposal, there was a location of the tanks, and that was what was the basis of it.
So this is, what, a couple of years ago, or?
No, and back in, this was originally presented to the Planning Commission when we first started the conditional use procedure, and there was a concept plan.
I keep hearing Mr. Wotus say this is a new application.
It was withdrawn, and then they decided to go this route.
Let's get this straight.
Yeah, we're talking about a zoning ordinance change, a proposed zoning ordinance amendment.
Yeah.
Prior to this, there was a conditional use application. You were at the meeting where we talked about the planning, at the Planning Commission.
Yes, I was, but I thought this, since this is a new application, that maybe they're going to be changing everything.
That could happen, and then we would could be remeasured at that point.
When I measured it lightly over the Google Maps, it looked like there was 12,700 feet of space that the tanks could be placed on, where they only affected those 3 properties, where that is less than a third. The existing Sheets has their tanks on less than a third of that property.
But you're correct, Mr. McCandless, it could change, but as it, based on what we measured, that's what it came out as.
Any other citizen comments?
Michael Gronsky, 136 Montclair Avenue. I want you to look ahead from my perspective. I want to be selling my house, say, in 2023. I showed my prospective buyer the house. I go to the upstairs bedroom. I can see the top of the dumpster, the roof of the store is over there, and the outdoor seating area for 30 people. Okay? But I have to tell the buyer, trust me, it's never an issue. It's always quiet. Don't worry, it's okay. Despite what you see, don't believe your lying eyes. Sure, the lights are on all night over there. They never have to close them out. Christmas, New Year's, Easter, they never have to turn the lights off. But that's not a problem. Please, trust me, that's not a problem. Beer sales till 2 a.m. Noise. No, there's no noise. Beer sales till 2 a.m. Everybody's quiet. Trust me, it's not a problem. Sure, every once in a while the cops flash their lights. They pull in there when something happens. But you can learn to sleep through it. I did. The garbage thing's no problem at all either. They pick it up on a regular basis. You can tell by the beeping when the truck backs up and the banging when they're removing the garbage. It doesn't bother me in the least. Trust me, it's fine. Yes, the big fuel tankers and delivery trucks go in and out all the time, but the noise they make is minimal, even all the beeping they do when they go in reverse. Now, all those cars you see running around the parking lot, you see that? And all the people going out of the store, they never make any noise. Trust me. Once again, who are you going to believe me? You going to believe me or your lying eyes looking down there? I never smell gas either. It's fine. I never smell gas. It may look like it's a smell, but I don't smell it. Trust me, it's fine. It may seem to a mere layman like you and me, your prospective buyer, that the fumes from the gas station are unhealthy. But back in 2018, we received assurances from the Sheets people that we were wrong. They had an expert say so. You must believe him, right? It looks unhealthy, but it really isn't. You may think that well in my basement, too, if I take you down there, could get gasoline in it. But the same expert from Sheets, he told me that with the new style storage tanks, we should be fine. There's no reason to be worried about that. Honest, trust me, I heard the guy say this with my own ears. Yes, it is true that you would not be eligible for an FHA mortgage. I got to admit that, because the property is closer to the buried fuel tanks than is allowed by HUD. You would probably be eligible for another type of mortgage at a higher rate of interest. They might say it's too close to the tanks, but they might say it's okay too. But you wouldn't know that until after you put money down, applied for the mortgage, and it was denied. Then again, they might say yes. And yes, it is true that you have to drive past the Sheets entrance on Montclair every time you go to the end of the street. But it gets very, very busy much of the time. But I haven't had an accident there yet. It is no problem at all. Trust me. I know you had a difficult time getting in here, crossing over the 3 lanes to get down. But if you practice a while, you'll learn how to do it. Besides, Sheets says that we can go through their lot to catch a traffic light. Say, what? You think that's absurd? You never heard of such an idiotic thing? Well, our town council and Sheets was fine with it back in 2018. What? You think you would rather not buy my house? Why not? You think I'm selfish pointing all this out? Is that right? Certain portions of all of everything I've said apply to every house on Montclair and Tierra and Casa Grande. All those things. If a council member owned my house, do you think I'd be having any of these conversations? Huh? No. The answer to that should be the same as your vote tonight. No. Also, they said tonight that he didn't have the opportunity to present the plan. The truth of the matter is, they chose not to present the plan before they filed for this text amendment. They could have done it all the while. In fact, my lawyer, I believe he said, if I understood him right, said that you guys shouldn't be acting on this because you shouldn't do anything in the absence of a plan. If you want to change the text and the zoning map. Okay? So please, whatever you do, it's real easy, just vote no. It's the wrong thing it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening, Bill Barrow, Donna Drive, McCandless resident, a customer of Sheets, also a friend with a number of employees. I'm there regularly, more so than I should be, but I shoot for MTO's healthier foods. I can tell you that just about any time during normal business hours prior to the evening, that Sheets is doing extremely well. That lot is quite busy. And I'd say roughly half the time I have to stop on Perry Highway before making a right turn from southbound 19 into that Sheets, just to make sure that somebody's not pulling out from a pump, backing out from one of the spots. A handicap spot is basically 2 spots in on the right as you pull in. So it's quite often that as I'm pulling into there, I need to stop on 19 because they're space constrained. Every employee that I talk to there, a number of which I coached in youth football or wrestling, and just know them personally, and they're McCandless residents as well, is begging for a new, improved store to work in, and one in the area. They don't want to have to go much farther. I hope that we do get a new Sheets. Whether or not all this other stuff works out and it's on Montclair, I don't have a horse in the race. But I can tell you that Sheets is far beyond its lifespan. It does need to be upgraded, and all the other Sheets are doing quite well. I hope that McCandless is a place where such a thing can happen. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
My name is Nancy Rupp, and I live at 231 Montclair Avenue. Well, this is it. I have been praying since all this began that council will please reject the Sheets proposal and realize how dangerous and hazardous it would be to build a gas station in our neighborhood. I also prayed that Sheets would realize the harm they would be causing to the families living on Montclair. Months ago, we, the residents of Montclair, Prescott, and Casa Grande, got together to save our family, friends, and homes. We spent a lot of time researching and presented to you all the information, proof, and documentation on the hazards of a gas station near residential homes. FHA loans not being approved, the traffic nightmare, and our children's safety at the bus stop, and the CCAC students having to cross 19. We are not opposed to have the corner of Montclair and 19 cleaned up by putting other types of businesses there that are not open 24/7. But please don't build a gas station that is harmful to all families living on Montclair. Please don't put our lives in jeopardy. The slum landlords are responsible to take care of their property. It's a shame they have no regard for our neighborhood. Please reject the Sheets proposal and keep our neighborhood safe from harmful fumes and contaminating the well water on Montclair. We just hope when you get up tomorrow morning, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I made the right decision for the residents living on Montclair. Regardless of the outcome, we can be proud of ourselves and say we did a good job and did the best we could. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing no further comments, we have had a motion and a second, and listened to comments. It's now time for a vote. This is to adopt ordinance number 1744, an ordinance to amend the proposed Sheets. All those in favor of accepting this amendment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Roll call vote.
Ward 2,
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4,
Aye.
Ward 5,
Nay.
Ward 6.
Nay.
Ward 7,
Nay.
Ward 1.
Nay. Public Safety Committee.
That's me. Madam Chair, I move to appoint Carl F. Yaney as a police officer for the town of McCandless, conditioned upon the following passage of a physical examination, psychological examination, and physical agility test pursuant to the memorandum of understanding between the town of McCandless and the McCandless Police Office Association.
Wait. Excuse me. Please respect, please respect this facility.
Chief DeSanti, can you please address the situation outside,
you-
please?
Yeah, just
Just go outside with the chief and then, go on ahead, you guys. Go talk to them.
All right, please maintain respect and the dignity of this place and these proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please continue, Councilwoman.
Okay, where was I? Pursuant to the memorandum of understanding between the town of McCandless and the McCandless Police Office Association, and the receipt by the town of McCandless of a current MPO-ETC certification.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any comments or questions by council? This is a very qualified young man, and we are pleased to offer him this position. Are there any comments or questions from any citizens? Hearing none, all those in favor of appointing our new police officer, Carl Yaney, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Number 2, move to adopt ordinance number 1478, an ordinance amending ordinance number 1473 by reducing the no parking zone at the end of Collington Square to the turnaround areas only.
I second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments by council?
Brief comment.
Okay.
Did some research. If you recall, I think I see one familiar face from Collington in the audience. I said I was 99% sure about the ability for the town or municipality to reduce a no parking zone like we have been discussing. And I got my 1%, so it's 100%. Now I talked to the expert at PennDOT. I just wanted to confirm, since our expert is on sick leave, our internal expert. So just so council knows that it's fully within your purview to be able to reduce this the way it's being presented.
I would also like to thank the residents for helping us get this right. So thank you for your persistence. Any other comments by council members? Any but from citizens? Okay. Hearing none, there's been a motion made to adopt ordinance number 1478, reducing the no parking zone on Collington Square. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Number 3, move to adopt ordinance number 1479, an ordinance repealing the following no parking restrictions on Pine Creek Road and Acadia Drive as shown in the Town Code, Section 505.04B15, on both sides of Pine Creek Road from Perry Highway eastward to McKnight Road, B16 on both sides of Pine Creek Road from Perry Highway westward to Bellcrest Road, B20 on either side of Pine Creek Road from Minot Road east, a distance of 200 feet, B34 on Arcadia Drive from McKnight Road westerly, a distance of 715 feet.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to remove the no parking on this extensive stretch of roads. Are there any comments?
No.
Council? Any comments from the citizens? Okay, hearing none. Motion and a second. All those in favor adopting ordinance 1479, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Public Works.
Move to adopt resolution number 18 of the 2018 series, a resolution renewing the 5-year agreement with PennDOT for winter traffic services on PennDOT roads within the town of McCandless.
Second the motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. This is where the town actually does snow or removal for the PennDOT, and we are reimbursed for those services. Any questions, comments from town? Questions or comments from citizens? Okay, there's been a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 18 of the 2018 series. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any unfinished business? No? Okay. All right, moving to new business. There are 2 items under here, and these are public works items.
Move to award a contract for the 2018 stormwater management facilities maintenance program work as specified by the town stormwater engineer to Jay's Construction LLC in the amount of $112,785.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to accept this work contract. We publicized this in all the usual ways that the town is required to. We only had 2 bidders that submitted bids, and which is a little disappointing. We'd like to have more for the competition. Toby, do you want to say anything about that?
We did receive bids from one bidder. This is specialty work. It's grading of stormwater management facilities that the town owns or maintains. We have 64 of them, and we methodically are revamping them, inspecting them, and making any determinations that need to be made and changes that need to be made to them. So this is an ongoing program that the town has had for about 8 years now. The low bid is someone who understands the work quite well. Jay's Contracting talked with our engineer about Dan Beck Well Services, who's the second low bidder, whose price is nearly 4 times that of the low bid, and they did not inspect the work, and they ordinarily do not do this kind of work. So sometimes you get a bid from a contractor, just throws a dart, and that's what this one seems to be. The four bidders in total looked at the specifications and 2 bid.
Thank you. Any other questions by council? Any comments from citizens? Okay, a motion has been made with a second to award the contract for stormwater management to Chase Construction. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Move to award a contract to Insight Pipe Contracting LP for rehabilitation of 48-inch storm sewer with cured-in-place pipe CIPP liner located in Arden Drive based upon CoStar's program number 16 in the amount of $97,856.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any questions concerning this pipe liner?
Just a brief comment. This item is, we have $450,000 total budgeted for various pipelining projects. This is the 3rd of those projects. This would take us to about $240,000 consumed out of the $450,000, so we're well within budget. And this project is bid through the State CoStar's program because of its size. There's a program that is run through our North Hills Council of Governments that does not handle this size pipe, so that's why the term piggyback is used whenever we use we go off of another government's bidding process, in this case the state.
This pipe liner is a huge cost savings to the town, so you don't have to dig up the pipe, change the road, or whatever else you have to do, and put in new pipe. So this just lines the old pipe, so this is very cost effective. Any other comments from the council? Comments from citizens? Okay. Public comment
No,
now?
not
Yeah.
yet. We need a
Oh,
vote. We need a vote.
Is this about the pipe?
No.
Okay. As soon as we vote, it'll be public comment. You were ready. You were ready. Okay. All right. There's been a motion and a second to accept the CoStar program number 16. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Now it's time for public comment.
Good evening. My name is John Henshaw. I live on Plateau Drive. I used to be able to do this.
Make sure you push that in there because it's going to, there you go.
Nothing worse than everybody else not being able to hear you. I wanted to bring to council's attention the concept of disruptive properties. I sent to every council member this evening an email I received from the city of Pittsburgh concerning their existing disruptive property ordinance. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, one neighbor had to leave on my street, Plateau Drive. There is a rental property, as well as some other rental properties in the town that have questionable tenants. Police have been called to the residents at Plateau Drive several times, and most recently, one of my neighbors was personally confronted in a disorderly way with, I believe, foul language, and it was unprovoked. Another neighbor was technically stalked while she was cutting grass with menacing looks and being followed up and down the property line, continuing with menacing looks. So I would like council to take into consideration adopting a similar ordinance using the city of Pittsburgh's ordinance as a guideline. And also, if the solicitor could check into how much more teeth can be put into an ordinance here in this town that may not exist in the city's ordinance. I don't like government intrusion on private property owners, but whenever it gets to the point where, the quiet enjoyment of the neighborhood, no longer exists, not only with the behavior that was recently observed, but also with disruptive music, visitors, and allegations of possible illegal behavior. So I think we need to get ahead of the game on this with an aging population. There are houses that are turning over already that have been turned into rental properties. And I think in order to maintain, the type of neighborhoods we want, that if there is a problematic tenant or property, that it needs to be addressed. So I charge the council to look into this and to start proceedings to look into passing an ordinance addressing disruptive properties. The other issue I wanted to ask was, has anybody, either the treasurer or Mr. Kordick, come to any realization of how much tax revenue we're getting from McCandless Crossing?
I don't have a direct answer to that. I would have to take some research, I think, but off the top of my head, I wouldn't have.
Is your information over here? Did you sign in over here so that we can contact?
No, I will though. Okay. Yeah, one time I came here in the past and
this is a
there
time
was.
for public comment.
Pardon me?
This is a time for public comment. It's really difficult to have all the answers to complex questions like that. Just kind of
Okay, all right. So then I would charge council to look into the matter, either with the treasurer or Mr. Kordick, whoever has, the data. And perhaps an incentive for council would be that with the increased revenues, we might be able to increase the salary of council, and perhaps in the future also attract more diverse people, to come on to council that may feel that the compensation is inadequate enough, and also more in line with existing communities. I understand Ross Township pays their borough council more money than we pay our council members. Is that correct? Does anybody know that for a fact?
Yes.
They do.
We're just taking comments.
Pardon me?
We're just taking comments.
Okay, all right. So then I would like council to look into that so we can get an idea. And if the county has also assessed everybody in there, I think last time Mr. Kordick told me when I was here that was something that was going on, that the county hadn't assessed everybody in McCandless Crossing. Do you remember that? It was a couple years ago, so it could have been that they didn't have everybody assessed. So there should be an assessment, done by now, I would hope, and we should know how much tax money is coming in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I ask a question, please? When those things happened on your road, were the police called?
Yes, and the chief is here, he can verify that.
I also have one really quick question. Is this the same disruptive property that was brought to our attention about 18 months ago by 4 or 5 members of the road?
It probably is. Is it Plateau Drive? Yeah, that's the only disruptive property we have. And any other questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, Michael Gronsky, 136 Montclair Avenue. I just wanted everybody to realize that we are not against developing our area. There have been businesses there the entire time, okay? We are really much against the 24/7 in the gasoline. We'll help anybody, anything we can do to keep the sheets over there if they want. If we can get them to agree to get the community college to agree to give up some of that land, which they aren't using, obviously. It'd be put to much better use. I think if we can all get together and put some pressure on them, that'd be great.
They've been approached.
I know, but how hard, we got to do it harder. And the other thing I did want to say is that if Sheets or anybody, any business in the town says they're going to leave if they don't get this or something, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go home, that's a no. I think we should never, ever buckle under that kind of pressure to anybody.
I feel the same way when people say we're going to sue you if you don't do it our way.
Oh,
Thank you for your comments. You have more time. Go
okay.
ahead.
I didn't have a whole lot more to say. I just don't, there's no animosity. I understand where everybody's coming from. I do want to see the area developed. I really, really do. Okay? But that project was just unconscionable. It was out there, man. Okay? It was crazy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
I just wanted to take a minute. It's Jim Band from Casa Grande. I wanted to take a minute to commend all of you for the consideration on the Sheets project and amendment. You have listened to a lot of complicated and contradictory information for several months. And while we're very grateful for the way it's come out, I know that everybody voted for what they thought was best for the residents and for the township. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, hearing none, then we are going to proceed to interview our candidates for the Environmental Advisory Committee. We have enough people to fit in there. We can probably fit in the other room. It's a little bit easier to interview. There's no place for them to sit here, so I think we're going to adjourn to the other room.
All right. Joanne, do you want your broken pen back? Good pen. I have my good pen in there. I just left it in there. I'm going to throw both of these broken pens away, though.